What's wrong with you people?
Welcome to Not Another Baptist Podcast. My name is Matt Hensley, and I'm joined by Kyle Bierman. And Kyle, I am back from Seminary Hill. I was not there, though, for a preview day. And so if you are looking for a theological education that includes both academic challenge and hands-on ministry experience, then I think we would like to suggest Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And the best way for you to experience SWBTS is to attend their fall preview day on October 21st. Preview days are your opportunity to see firsthand all that Southwestern Seminary has to offer. Let me tell you, that also includes some incredible coffee. During your visit, you'll tour the campus, speak with faculty members, chat with fellow students, hear from President Adam W. Greenway, and experience the unique campus community of Southwestern Seminary. Fall Preview Day is October 21st, so register today for free at swbts.edu/preview. And Kyle, I got a big preview of the campus when I was there, and I'll tell you why. I was in the Riley Center. In my first night in any hotel, it doesn't matter if it's a hotel I've stayed at before or whatever, my first night, I will always go to sleep, but I don't stay asleep. I usually wake up around 11 or 12 and maybe 1, and I just kind of toss and turn a little bit. It doesn't matter how comfy the bed is, how cold the room is, none of that. I never sleep. And that happened again, even though I've stayed in the Riley Center bunches of times. And so I woke up like for good at about 2:30. I'm like, I could get some stuff done. I'm tired. I couldn't really sleep. So I wasn't really, productive in a sense, but I was awake. And so I put on my shoes and I went for a long walk, kind of like Forrest Gump, but walking. And I walked.
I started walking.
And I walked. And so each lap around Southwestern Seminary is roughly a mile. And I had done, I think it was 7 laps. By the time I finally went in, and I thought maybe I could doze off for a little bit. And so I did. I was able to sleep a little longer that morning. But so I got a good preview of all the outside of the campus, and it's beautiful at night. It's beautiful during the day, but right now it's 1,000,000 degrees. So I preferred to see it at night. And because it was only like 85 degrees. So anyway, we had a good time at SWBTS. I was teaching strategic planning and had two guys that were in their church revitalization perspective consultants, and one from a church of about 2,500, one from a church of about 12. And so kind of the span of the SBC in a sense, and both of them loving their churches well, trying to lead well, and we learned some similar principles that will work for both of them as we think through strategic planning. We've talked about this on the show before, and maybe we'll talk about some small wins and short-term and long-term goals soon, but we're not talking about any of that today. But before we dig into our topic, how was your vacation?
Man, it was fantastic. So first of all, we went, and I think I shared a couple weeks ago, we went to a family reunion, which is always an interesting thing. And ours is not like, at this point, most of the crazy uncles have passed away. All right. So like, we don't really have crazy uncles. That's true. I guess I could become the crazy uncle. Believe it or not, I've never actually thought about that. I have a life goal. So it was good to see family. And then Michelle and I went to Corpus Christi for a few days and got to spend some time on the beach. And Matt, you would have loved this. So I went to Whataburger Ballpark, and I got it looks like the Whataburger symbol, but it's in the shape of Texas, because that is the logo for the honey butter chicken biscuits when the Corpus Christi Hooks play is that. And so had a great time there. Went and toured an aircraft carrier, and we were on that sucker for 5 hours, Matt, a 5-hour tour.
Was that a guided tour, or it took you 5 hours?
No, it was self-guided tour. And it's like, part of it was like, you're walking through the aircraft carrier. Part of it they turned into a museum for like World War II and some different stuff, but really cool. They filmed part of the movie Pearl Harbor from back in 1999 on there. So that was kind of cool. Then we went to the Texas State Aquarium, where we touched jellyfish and we touched a shark. Now it was like a 2-foot shark, but still very, very cool experience. It was fun to get away to the beach. and spend a little bit of time down there, and then come back. We missed, I think we missed the big heat wave, so it was like 107 here while we were gone. So we missed that. But yeah, now we are back, and we are in the middle of VBS. We came off of vacation to Vacation Bible School, which is not, ironically, does not feel much like a vacation at the moment.
So a couple of things. First thing, the last time I was in the ocean, I was not touched by an angel, but I was touched by a jellyfish. So that was fun. And then the last time I was in one of those old battleships, I think it was Galveston. Galveston has one, don't they?
Yeah, Galveston. I believe they do. Yeah.
So we're walking through, and they had like the little, I guess they're still called barracks, but the bunks wherever they would sleep, I think like 3 deep or 3 high that they were in there, maybe even 4. One of them was made up like they're supposed to, sleep and so forth. And so I laid down on it. And my wife made this comment. She's like, I wondered how many people slept right here. And it's like, I got up immediately. It's like, I don't know. So anyway, we, while you were doing that, had more of a kind of staycation here. We left the friendly confines of Farmersville and went to Grapevine, Texas, and stayed at the Great Wolf Lodge, and which it was kind of funny because we were indoors swimming, which I love the water. I hate the fact that for me to enjoy the water, I have to put on like an inch of sunscreen. And so to be able to be inside and in the water, swimming, all of that kind of stuff is really great for me. And also we never, like they had an outdoor area that the girls went to sometimes. I never went out there. And so I was indoors for 3 days when all of this big heat wave came. And so it's like 111 here or whatever. And they're talking about, the rolling blackouts and all that kind of stuff. And I had no idea until, like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, the heat of the day, we're taking all of our stuff to the car to leave. And I was like, what happened? Like, where did we move to like Tucson? No, it's humid. It couldn't be Tucson. So anyway, we had a good time though. Girls had a blast, and we howled in the gift shop, and were able to get some wolf ears, kind of like Mickey ears, but wolf. And I was informed I wore them backwards the entire time. So, but we had a good time. But again, we're not here to talk about that or short or long-term goals or any such thing. We're here to talk about your schedule. We've talked about time management before, but we want to talk about something within time management, if you will. And that is that stuff happens. And the best laid plans, you are going to work 8 hours on your sermon on Monday, and then do some administration and meeting on Tuesdays, and then you're going to make visits on Wednesday, and then you're going to do follow-up or planning on Thursday. All the things that you sketch out in your schedule can immediately be derailed when someone on drugs crashes right in front of your church. Kyle, have you ever experienced something like that?
So it's funny you should say that, Matt.
Huh.
So we were recording this on Wednesday morning last night during VBS Tuesday night, which for us is night 3. So we started Sunday night. I was in the fellowship hall, and so let me preface this by saying, so our pastor started his sabbatical today, started a 6-week sabbatical today. So I'm kind of playing that role for VBS more or less. Like I'm just kind of a floater going around and checking on things. So I was in the fellowship hall because that's where the food is. And somebody comes in and they said, hey, did you see the wreck? To which I said, no, what are you talking about? They said, yeah, there was a big wreck right out front of the church. And our church is on kind of at the intersection of 2 pretty busy streets here. And so incidents happen. So for instance, since Thanksgiving, we've had a car crash into one of the plate glass windows in the church in a hit and run. We had a car jump the curb and take out a tree and end up upside down in the middle of the street. 2 weeks ago, we had a guy who just like threw a rock through the plate glass window or through one of our doors.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that, by the way.
And the funny thing was, on the video, you can see he throws the rock and then he just stands there and waits for the cops to show up and arrest him. Like he kind of like leaned in and peeked his head in, but he never walked in the building. And I mean, it's so. And then last night, this wreck. So yeah, things happen. Now last night, nobody was really injured. But the individual was arrested because he had some very, very illegal drugs on him that he stashed behind a tree on the church property. But there were like 4 guys who were outside at the point and saw him throw stuff back there. And so they kind of tipped the cop off and said, hey, you should probably go look behind that tree. So, yeah, I mean, that's not going to be an ongoing crisis. But if you're in an area with any kind of homeless population or any kind of transient population, folks are going to wander in needing help for something. And especially if you are a smaller church where it's maybe, the pastor and a secretary, you may not have somebody assigned to take care of that. And so these disruptions happen. And then, of course, every pastor knows death is no respecter of time. And so funerals are almost never at a convenient time. And those pop up from time to time. So you've got to account for those in your schedule. Hospital visits, emergencies that come up, unplanned meetings. I mean, these crises just pop up from time to time, and you've got to allow margin to deal with them. So Matt, let's talk about, share with me if you can share it in this format, the most disruptive thing that you experienced in Mayhill, like that kind of just big one where it's like, oh no, this came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's the one that I use as an example a lot. We had someone that had attempted suicide. And it was one that, in a sense, didn't affect the schedule a whole lot because it happened at night. And so I had gone to bed. Rebecca woke me up because the phones were going off, and we finally were able to get in touch, find out what happened. But so I got dressed and left and went to the hospital. And I was really there for, I guess until about 6 or 7 in the morning. I went back up the mountain to have donuts with my daughters, and then I was back down. That was still technically my day off, and so it threw a few things off. Normally on Monday I would do a little bit of the legwork on my sermons and so forth, and but yeah, that was the one that disrupted everything, because the rest of the week I was in sort of behind on sermon prep, and then of course there was a follow-up of dealing with all of that. There was just a lot going on with it. And meetings that we had to have and so forth, whether it was, mental health stuff. And because I kind of ended up being a caretaker of sorts for them in that situation for a variety of reasons. And so that took a lot. And it derailed a lot of things that week. We had meetings that I had to move. We obviously sermon prep moved off a little bit. That sermon that Sunday was probably not the most well studied sermons that I've ever preached, but we got through it. And that's something like, you made a comment, and I know you kind of unpacked a little later that you need to account for it in your calendar. You can't put in your calendar, obviously, that you're going to have a death on Monday, and you're going to have a hospital, somebody have a heart attack on Tuesday, somebody's going to commit this on Wednesday, and somebody's going to crash through your door on Thursday. The fact is, you never know. These are crises and so forth that happen because you don't expect them, and you don't expect them. You can't really plan for them, but in a sense, you can prepare for them and leave some margin in your schedule so that your schedule isn't just morning, noon, and night packed 5 days a week or even more, because then something's going to happen and it moves everything up. And so when I account for crises in a schedule, it's usually in the sense that I'm going to leave a few hours of every day that's sort of a buffer, where I know that if I've got to take this call or somebody just shows up and needs this or that at the church, that I can hit the pause button for a little bit and pick this up a little later. Or if it's going to take me out of the office, that I've still got some extra time that maybe I can use the next day to catch up a little bit. And because the last thing you want to do as a pastor, right? You are a preacher, and a very critically important part of your work is the preaching of the word. And so you want to be studied up, prepared, all of that kind of stuff. But if all you're focusing on is the preaching, and you're doing the 30, 40 hours a week sermon prep, all of that kind of thing, and say no to every crisis that pops up, you're not going to be the pastor of your church.
Yep.
And so they do derail plans, they do kill your productivity, all of that kind of stuff. So I think what we're going to encourage today is to manage what you can control, right? Have a plan. Don't go into your week without a plan. Have some things sketched out, your to-do list that hey, I need to get, the outline for my sermon done, and then maybe a tier above that, where I want to also flesh out the manuscript. And so sometimes you can get into the pulpit if you normally use a manuscript and have a expanded outline a little bit, maybe not the time to get the full manuscript, but you could still go into the pulpit, faithfully preach the word with that outline and so forth, and you're fine. It's the long-term planning that maybe that's something that, hey, this week I just don't have it because I've had this death, this thing, all of this stuff has popped up. Because at the end of the day, you're that church's pastor. We're talking primarily to pastors here. You're that church's pastor, and so that means that you kind of have to be there for when that person dies or whatever. Now, the small crises or the crises that are not necessarily where you need to be involved and drop everything to go to, somebody's having just a regular ankle, this or that, or whatever, that a deacon can go to, another staff member can go to, that kind of deal. Delegate by all means when you can, but be there for those crises. And also when somebody just crashes right in front of the church, be ready to, or crashes into the church. Obviously, that's going to derail a lot of things. But you need to, week by week, kind of get her done, take care of business, get all the things that you have to get done, to follow up all of that, have a good game plan. But you need to be nimble enough to be able to drop some of that to go and attend to the work. And so that's why I loved what Adam Greenway said on Twitter. I think it was yesterday. I increasingly find that the most consequential ministry I may have in any one particular day bears little semblance to what was on my calendared agenda for that same day. What I may tend to view as a disruptive irritation may turn out to be a divine intervention. And so we need to hold on to our calendar and our schedule and all of that kind of with a loose hand, and let God kind of bring the things into our life that we do need to attend to. So have a plan, get things done, all of that, but be nimble enough to shepherd as you go, as the needs arise. Kyle?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that, we've done obviously several episodes talking about sermon prep. But if you have a plan ahead of time, if you're not, just going from week to week, figuring out what you're going to preach. I know you and I are both big fans of preaching expositionally, so preaching through books of the Bible primarily. But even if you do more topical series, line those out ahead of time so that if nothing else, when Monday morning hits, you at least know the passage of scripture that you're going to be on for that Sunday morning. And then on those weeks where you have a little bit more margin, go ahead and read ahead. And even if you can just get a basic outline of a passage, that will be a leg up for one of those weeks where the crises hit and there's just not as much margin because of funerals, because of other urgent matters that need to be taken care of. And again, if you're in a larger church and you have a full staff that can manage this, that's a different world than if you are in a smaller church and when the car crashes into the church, you're the guy who gets the call, or when the air conditioner goes out, you're the guy that is calling the HVAC repair, and you've got to be there when they come to repair it. So think ahead as much as you can. You can't plan for crises, but you can at least plan for there to be crises, right? I know there's going to be something at some point that disrupts, so I'm going to leave margin in here and try to just handle your time as wisely as you possibly can. in order to make account for those, so that when something breaks, something goes haywire, you're not having to finish a sermon at 10:15 on Sunday morning before walking into the pulpit.
Yeah. I was going to say one of the probably the best practices that you can do and strive for it. There's going to be times that this is better than others, but strive for it. Don't get behind. The moment, maybe on Monday or Tuesday that you're just not really feeling it and you want to just kind of take it easy, that kind of deal. Like listen to your body, all of that kind of stuff. But get some things done that are maybe more mindless that you can still knock off because you've pushed your sermon back now at that point. And so then maybe you start working that later on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that kind of deal. Well, that's great if nothing happens. But if something happens and you still have visitor follow-up and you still have emails to follow up and you still have this and your sermon prep and all of that kind of stuff, you still need to attend to that need. And then all of those things are going to be dropped at that point. And so do what you can. There's better weeks than others, but do what you can to stay ahead of the game so that you're not constantly playing catch up, so that when some of these things are happening, that I can take some time to handle this and not be too behind, and because it only makes you further behind. And so, manage what's the quote or whatever, manage your time or your time will manage you. That idea that your week is going to get away from you if you don't have a plan, and sketch that out. If it's a calendaring, it certainly helps to have family time on your calendar so you can say, hey, I've got a meeting this time, whatever it is. Do all of those things, have a plan, but stay ahead of the game. Don't just keep putting things off, because then things are going to happen. And then the things that you put off still have to get done. And then that's when Saturday night specials are coming in on you just trying to get something down on paper to preach. And so anyway, any other thoughts?
No, other than if you're still listening to this podcast, you should probably get off and do some sermon prep or something, because there's a crisis coming.
Good idea. Absolutely. Well, I'll send us out.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for listening. And until next time, may your coffee be as black as night and as bold as the gospel you declare.
What's wrong with you people?